Hello there. So while Rishi Sunak kneels before the green agenda, Germany is engaged in doing exactly the opposite. Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and then like and comment below. Our new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has obviously received his WEF-inspired orders. Net zero by 2050 or bust. Actually, that should be net zero by 2050 and bust. Bust the UK economy, that is. Because the Prime Minister, confirmed by his spokesperson, has stated that the UK fracking moratorium is back on, despite the so-called earthquakes being tremors at half the allowable strength for construction sites. So maybe all construction and any sort of mining or excavation should also be immediately halted across the UK in case tremors destroy us all. But didn't our Rishi say just a few weeks ago that he was in favour of fracking where it had local support? But while we're doing that, Germany is doing something else. They have a wind farm in West Germany near the Garzweiler lignite coal mine. Lignite being relatively dirty brown coal. But the German government wants more electricity, so they are recommissioning 3 lignite coal-fired electricity generating plants. So they obviously need more lignite. They are therefore taking the sledgehammers to some of the wind turbines near the Garzweiler mine and decommissioning them, so they can mine for more lignite instead. Well, that's definitely a new take on going green, isn't it? Do the Germans know something that we're not being told here in the UK? Surely if wind turbines work and are cheap to run and the electricity they generate is so cheap, then why isn't the lignite mine being filled in and covered in wind turbines? Anyway, right now there are 50 or so liquefied natural gas, that's LNG, tankers all loitering off the coast of Europe, waiting to see if the price of gas will go up as winter approaches. That's right, gas is being held back for increased profits. Because the price of gas has been dropping recently, so profits aren't going to be as high as predicted. And those profits are not being helped by the relatively mild weather, pushing demand down and subsequently prices down. And part of the problem has been the fear-mongering that the gas will run out. So massive orders have been placed, and it seems we can't actually cram any more in. So the ships out there are holding back, hoping to see an upswing in prices in December. And according to analysts, that could see extra profits of tens of millions per tanker. But in Texas right now, they're producing so much gas they can't shift it. And according to oilprice.com, its price has collapsed to near zero due to the glut. Just imagine if the UK had a glut of its own natural gas. What then cost of living crisis? Pity we don't have that opportunity, isn't it? Now they came for your cars and are on the verge of robbing ordinary people of their freedom-giving personal transport, with only the elite having access to electric cars and flying and the like. But now they're after your food. The Guardian reports that the EU is on track to fail to meet its own methane emissions cutting targets, and that methane emissions in Europe have the global heating power of 160 coal power energy generating plants, with the cause being emissions from both ends of cows, and that the greenhouse gas impact of this methane is at least 27 times worse than CO2 over a 100-year time frame. So suddenly agricultural emissions are worse than car emissions. How predictable. And you just know that this will be used to push the plant-based only diet, don't you? Those WEF types are very determined to force you to eat your chemical factory-produced Franken soup with a sprinkling of insect croutons, aren't they? Now, as I've said before, the Rejoin the EU loons are now out in force, telling anyone who can be bothered to listen that all our current woes are down to Brexit and that we must rejoin the EU straight away. Sad, isn't it? And one of those pro-EU loons is the Scottish First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. And she's trying to tell everyone in Scotland that they can go independent in a couple of years using the pound as their currency, and then take on their own currency and then join the EU. But further, that joining the euro was not the right option for Scotland. But as I keep pointing out, it is one of the requirements of joining the EU that any country wanting to become a member must make the commitment to join the Eurozone. And this has been confirmed by Eurocrats who say that Scotland would have to take on the euro and so come under the European Central Bank for Monetary Policy. And that would be exactly the same for any EU supporters who want the UK back in the EU. They would have to actively make the case for the UK to ditch the pound and take on the euro. But they don't want to address that particular issue for some reason. I wonder why. Surely they have proofs and leaflets all about how the euro is so superior to the pound and how much better off we'd be if only we'd hand over full control to Brussels again. But if they could, they'd already have done it, wouldn't they? All I see for an independent Scotland under Sturgeon's policy is a decade or more, probably many decades, floundering on the borders of both the UK and the EU with no direction in sight. So while Rishi Sunak has been doing all he can to keep Brussels and Dublin on side regarding the Northern Ireland Protocol, the people he should be talking to, the Northern Ireland Unionist community, has forced a new set of Stormont elections in December due to the lack of progress on sorting out the protocol issues. Unless the DUP sees action on the protocol, they have said they will continue to boycott any power sharing with Sinn Féin, something that does adversely impact the local economy. Now the DUP say that they feel sidelined by the whole process and that as far as anyone else is concerned, the unionist community can just bog off, whether it be in London, Brussels, Dublin or indeed Washington. The whole point here is that under the Belfast Agreement, the position of Northern Ireland inside the UK should be secure, unless there is a clear vote on both sides of the border to unite the island of Ireland. That has not happened, and there is no indication that it would happen. But to hold such a vote in Northern Ireland would be very divisive and potentially very explosive, if there was a narrow majority either way. That's why the timing of any such vote must be very carefully judged. But the crux of the matter is that after Brexit, Northern Ireland should still be an integral part of the UK. But it is not, by dint of the trade border in the Irish Sea caused by the operation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, one interesting development is that the third largest political party in Northern Ireland, the Alliance Party, that claims to be non-partisan where independence is concerned, has never worked with the DUP, but it is now prepared to work with Sinn Féin, something that leads me to think they are less non-partisan than people thought, or just as likely to be getting hungry as its leaders sniff the chance of getting some power. But that might cost them unionist votes in the upcoming elections in December. And now that the DUP has taken firm action, they might attract more voters back who had thought they'd gone soft when supporting the protocol. Difficult times in Northern Ireland.